Welcome to Late Night Horror Stories and True Crime. Tonight's case is taken straight from the forbidden vaults of the Vatican archives, where reports of the supernatural are quietly filed away and rarely spoken of again. In this installment, a private investigator is hired to look into the aftermath of a teenage séance gone horribly wrong. But what he uncovers is not just a haunting, it's a demon that doesn't just follow you home, it learns your name. Turn the lights low. This is the Séance Circle. I've seen a lot in my time. Murder scenes soaked in silence, families torn up by betrayal, eyes that still stare after the soul has gone. But this case started with a phone call so mundane, so ordinary, I almost didn't pick it up. It was a Tuesday. Rain had pooled in the cracks of the sidewalk outside my Cleveland office. I was going over billing with my assistant when the landline rang. Landlines are for trouble. Cell phones are for favors. Stroud Investigations. This is Father Benedetti, calling from the Diocese of Columbus. That got my attention. Benedetti was Vatican connected, a fixer for cases that fell outside the realm of the usual police response. I'd worked with him once before, possession, or something like it. Since then, we'd kept our distance. Too much truth rots the soul if you look at it too long. There's been an event, he said. A girl named Rhea Callahan, 19 years old, had been part of a group of 5 friends who gathered at a rural house outside Delaware, Ohio. They were celebrating the end of midterms with a séance, not a joke, candles, Latin phrases, spirit board, the full setup. They live-streamed it to their private Discord server. No real audience, just teenage arrogance. And then things got strange. Over the next 6 days, all 5 began reporting vivid nightmares, bruises in their sleep and the smell of sulfur in their homes. One girl, Mia Delacroix, was found dead in her bedroom. Blood on the ceiling, fingernails torn off, door locked from the inside. A boy, Evan Lang, had gone nonverbal, not catatonic, just terrified. He'd been committed to a psych unit 2 days earlier. Then came the event that prompted the call. Marcus Bell had scratched Latin phrases into his own skin and claimed someone, or something, was living in the walls. Benedetti wanted an outside eye before escalating this to Vatican-level investigation. "You'll be paid your usual rate," he said. I told him I'd take double. He didn't hesitate. I arrived in Delaware, Ohio on Thursday. One of those towns where the chain restaurants look like churches, and the churches look abandoned. The Callahans lived in a sprawling farmhouse on the outskirts, land paid for by old money, the kind that gets inherited through gritted teeth. I was met by Mrs. Callahan at the door. Her face looked like it hadn't known rest in a week. Rhea was upstairs, refusing to come out of her room except at night. She hadn't spoken more than 3 words since Mia died. "She doesn't remember the séance," Mrs. Callahan whispered. "Or says she doesn't." I asked to see the room where it happened. The house it happened in belonged to Marcus Bell's uncle, who was out of the country, a half-hour away down a gravel road surrounded by tree line and silence. The kind of place kids use to drink and pretend they're grown. I entered alone. The living room still had melted candles stuck to paper plates, a broken glass on the floor, and at the center, a homemade Ouija board on a coffee table, its letters smeared with what looked like black ash. I took photos, ran a UV light across the surfaces. That's when I noticed something etched into the underside of the table. It looked like it had been scratched in with a house key. A name, AVENNIR. Didn't mean anything to me, not then. Back at my motel, I pulled the Discord server footage Benedetti had acquired. No video, just audio, grainy and full of teen chatter. Then chanting. A long silence. Someone whispering, "Did you hear that?" Then a voice. Not theirs. Low, wet, amused. "Perché m'intravi, ibi manebo." I paused the clip and replayed that line half a dozen times. Latin. "Where I have entered, there I will remain." It wasn't a joke. Not anymore. Mia was dead. She'd been found in a locked bedroom and there was no way in or out except the door. Her mother discovered her the next morning, curled up against the wall, face frozen in mid-scream. Her knuckles were raw from clawing at something that wasn't there. Evan was in a mental health facility but still physically unharmed. He refused to talk, eyes glued to the corner of any room he was in, as though watching for movement. They said he wet himself whenever lights flickered. Marcus had been taken in for psychological observation after his episode. His arms were bandaged where the Latin phrases were carved. But what he kept screaming was what disturbed me most. It followed me home. It's in the attic. It wears my face when I'm asleep. That left two, Ria Callahan and Joel Vasquez. Joel agreed to meet me the following morning at a coffee shop near campus. He sounded tired on the phone. "I'll tell you what I remember," he said, "but it won't help, because it wasn't a game. We brought something in." He hung up after that. This wasn't a hoax. I've seen fake hauntings, troubled teens acting out, sleep paralysis blamed on demons. But this had structure, a reaction, a progression. It wasn't random. It was invited. And the name I found scratched into the table, AVENNIR, started to show up in my research. Buried in obscure Vatican transcripts, always linked to what they called an entity of residence, not one that came and went, one that stayed. I locked the motel door, slept with my gun under the pillow. This case wasn't just about what they summoned. It was about what came through with it. Joel Vasquez looked like hell. We met at a cafe just off campus, one of those minimalist spots with reclaimed wood tables and tea no one actually drinks. He was in the far back, hoodie on, hat pulled low, sipping something lukewarm. I'd seen that look before. Trauma without a name. Eyes never resting, hands always moving. He nodded to the seat across from him but didn't speak. "I'm not here to make fun of you," I said. "I'm not here to disprove anything. Just tell me what happened." He sniffed and nodded, then leaned forward. "We didn't mean to call anything. It was supposed to be a joke. Ria brought the book, Marcus read the words, Mia lit the candles. That's all it was." "Until it wasn't," I said. He looked up at me then, real sharp. "Exactly." The group of 5, Ria, Joel, Marcus, Mia and Evan, had driven out to Marcus's uncle's place. It was an old farmhouse, no neighbors for a mile in any direction. They lit candles, cleared a table, and set up a makeshift board on a mirror scratched with letters. "We figured if mirrors are portals or whatever, it'd make things more authentic," Joel muttered. Marcus read from the book. The Latin came out stilted, but the final phrase rolled off his tongue smooth, like he'd practiced it 1,000 times. Then silence. "I remember the wind stopped outside," Joel said. "Not slowed, stopped, like the world held its breath. And then came the cold. Not air conditioning cold, bone deep, like something pressed in through the walls. One of the candles flickered and died, then another, just the two nearest the corner. That's when they saw it. A figure," Joel whispered. "Hooded, too tall. Its face was covered, but I swear to God it was breathing. Like you could hear it. Deep, wheezing breaths. And the weird thing is, we all saw it. At the exact same time." I didn't interrupt. "It didn't move. Just stood there in the far corner of the room. Watching. Or waiting. I don't know. Mia screamed. Rhea dropped the book. Evan knocked over the table. That's when all the candles blew out, and the corner was empty again. Gone. Just like that. Back at home, the group started experiencing things. Joel said the dreams came first. Long hallways, whispering behind walls, doors that wouldn't open. Then the markings. He rolled up his sleeve and showed me his forearm. 4 vertical scratches, healing over but still dark. I didn't do this, he said. I woke up like this. He said Marcus and Rhea had the same marks. Mia hadn't mentioned hers, but she'd gotten quiet in the days before her death. Evan just stopped showing up altogether, Joel added. Said he saw the thing in his room at night. We all figured it was just panic. Joel looked me dead in the eyes. But now 2 of us are gone. I went to the Callahan residence again that evening. This time Rhea was waiting in the kitchen. She looked pale, her arms wrapped tightly around her chest, a heavy sweater despite the heat. Joel told me you saw it too, I said. She nodded slowly. It was in the corner, she whispered. I looked away for a second, gone. But when I got home, I started seeing it again, reflected in my windows at the end of the hall. It never moves, just watches. I asked to see her arms. She hesitated, then pulled her sleeves back. Same 4 lines, faint, slightly red. I asked if she remembered the name scratched into the table. AVENNIR. You know what it means? No, she said, voice trembling. But when I dream, I hear someone say it, like they're trying to crawl into my mouth through my ears. He was being held in a private psychiatric facility under close observation. I showed my credentials, signed the waivers, and was led into a cold concrete room with a 2-way mirror. Marcus was already there, sitting stiff, eyes on the floor. His lips moved constantly, mouthing something inaudible. I sat across from him. Marcus, I just need you to tell me what you remember. He didn't stop whispering. I leaned in. He was repeating the same phrase. Not gone, not gone, not gone. Then he looked up and smiled, but it wasn't right. Stroud, he said, it knows your name now. That stopped me cold. I never told him who I was, I told the doctor afterward. No one here knew. They checked the visitor log. I was the only one who had been there that day. That night I reviewed all 3 interviews. The consistency unnerved me. The hooded shadow, the scratch marks, the progressive sightings. A pattern was emerging. The invitation, through ritual, the revelation, a shared sighting, the mark, 4 vertical scratches, the lingering, sightings that follow the individual. This thing wasn't haunting a house. It was moving with them, sticking to their skin like smoke or disease. The worst part, Joel, Rhea, and Marcus each thought the other was the source. They didn't realize they were all just vessels, and I was next in line to be touched. I don't scare easily. When you've pulled bodies from motel bathtubs and interviewed women who thought their dead husbands were hiding in the walls, fear becomes an abstract thing, a background hum. But by the time I began investigating the name, scratched into the seance table, AVENNIR, that hum had become a steady, rising wail, and I couldn't shake the feeling I'd heard the name before. It wasn't in any language I recognized offhand, not Greek, not Hebrew, not any known demonological index used by the Church. I checked the usual grimoires, Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonum, Ars Goetia, even the more obscure banned ones. Nothing. And that scared me more than a name that did exist. Things without names can be banished. Things that make up their own names, they're trying to be remembered. I returned to the house where the seance took place. Marcus's uncle's place. It was now empty. After Mia died, the family had it locked up. I still had access through the diocese. The power was off, and the autumn chill had crept in through the floorboards. I walked through slowly. The living room still bore the layout of that night. 5 candle rings on the hardwood, a scorched rectangle where the mirror board had sat, and what I hadn't noticed before, 4 long black smears on the wall in the corner. They looked like soot, but they were vertical, like fingers. I took a few photos, then climbed the narrow staircase. Upstairs, one of the bedrooms had been broken into, not from outside, but from within. The door was split down the middle. Something had pushed out. On the wall just above the bed was the word AVENNIR, again scratched in. Only this time there was something beneath it, another line hidden in the grooves. Per quem intravi ibi manebo. I recognized it. I'd heard it on the Discord recording from the seance. Where I have entered, there I will remain. I brought the audio back to my motel room and cleaned it up using some equipment I travel with. Tools for EVP analysis, audio filtering. I replayed the moment the entity spoke. This time, I listened for undertones. And I found them. Behind the voice was another sound, almost imperceptible. Something breathing. Deep, rhythmic, animal. But layered in was something else, something worse. A second voice. Whispering, mocking, mimicking. It repeated each word a split second after the first, like an echo trying to learn how to speak. It wasn't just talking, it was practicing. I sent a secure message to my old contact in Rome, Father Calderon, a Jesuit historian who specializes in unclassified demonic cases. He responded within hours, and that alone unsettled me. The church moves slowly unless something is urgent. His email was brief. Burn the audio. Destroy the location. Seal the mirror if it remains intact. Do not speak the name aloud again. AVENNIR is not a name. It is a veil. If you continue, you do so without sanction. That was his way of telling me. You're on your own. That night, the dreams started. I was back in the seance room, but the walls were wider than they should have been, stretching, breathing. The mirror was back on the table, but this time it was covered in frost. In the reflection, I saw not myself, but 5 hooded figures seated in the dark. They weren't moving. Then one raised its head. Its face was a void, but its voice was mine. You are the 6th. I woke up gasping, the room freezing. My motel clock read 3:17 a.m., same time as the night before. The condensation on the bathroom mirror had returned, this time not 4 lines, but 6. I'm being marked, not for death, at least not immediately. This thing doesn't kill for sport. It claims, it learns, it follows. The Callahan girl was right. AVENNIR isn't the demon's name. It's the doorway. It's the word they spoke that allowed something older to step through. And once it's invited, it doesn't leave. It waits. I'm being marked. Not for death, at least not immediately. This thing doesn't kill for sport. It claims, it learns, it follows. The Callahan girl was right. AVENNIR isn't the demon's name. It's the doorway. It's the word they spoke that allowed something older to step through. And once it's invited, it doesn't leave. It waits. The thing about demons no one tells you. They don't haunt rooms. They haunt people. And if the reports were right, if the scratches, the dreams, and the shared sightings were all connected, then whatever came through that seance didn't stay in the house. It came with them, jumping from host to host like a parasite, learning their faces, borrowing their voices. Now it was choosing who to keep and who to discard. Joel's mother called me in a panic. He'd been found curled up in the hallway outside his bedroom, clutching his head, screaming in a voice that wasn't his own. When I arrived, paramedics were already there. Joel had gone silent. His fingernails were blackened, as if scorched from the inside. No burns, no external trauma. Just Buck's arg. The EMT told me off the record it's like his body shut off on purpose, but Joel was breathing, eyes open, just gone. A husk. Before they loaded him into the ambulance, I caught a glimpse of his forearm. The 4 scratch marks had spread. Now there were 6. 2 fresh ones, deeper, darker, inflamed, like something had extended its grip. Marcus Bell vanished the next night. He was still under supervised observation. But around 2 a.m., a nurse stepped into his room to give him medication and found the bed empty. No broken window, no forced door, no footage from the security cams. He was just gone. On the wall, written in something dark, not quite blood, not quite ink, was one word: echo. No one knew what it meant, but I had a sick feeling it wasn't meant for the staff. It was meant for me. Rhea Callahan was the last one left untouched, at least physically. When I returned to the Callahan home, her mother met me at the door in tears. She said Rhea had begun sleepwalking every night, always around 3:17 a.m., always barefoot, always whispering in a language no one recognized. They found her in the backyard 3 times, once in the garage, once trying to climb into the fireplace. She says it's showing her things, her mother sobbed. She says it wants her to come home. Rhea sat in the living room, eyes half-lidded, mouthing something under her breath. I leaned in close enough to hear it. Latin. Again. Nomen est in nobis. The name is within us. When I said her name, she blinked hard, as if coming out of a trance, and looked up at me. It's not pretending anymore, she whispered. It doesn't have to. That night I parked down the street and watched the house. Midnight passed. Nothing. 1 a.m. Still silence. But at 3:13 a.m., the front porch light flickered once. And at 3:17, the back door opened. Rhea stepped outside, eyes wide open but blank. She stood in the grass, looking up at the moonless sky, and then slowly she raised one hand, like she was beckoning to something I couldn't see. I turned to look beyond her, and there it was, standing by the tree line, tall, hooded, motionless, the same shape they all described. Its face was in shadow, but its outline was bleeding into the trees, like smoke escaping from a broken bottle. And when I blinked, it was gone. Rhea stood frozen for a few more seconds, then turned her head and looked directly at me. She shouldn't have seen me. I was in a dark vehicle, engine off, parked under a streetlight 2 houses down, but she saw me, and she smiled. I called Benedetti. I told him I was past observation. It was time for intervention. He agreed to send someone, an old Jesuit named Father Gabriel Hart, a sanctioned exorcist with clearance to investigate active demonic cases in North America. I met him the next day, thin, tired, hands that trembled not from age but from memory. He entered the Callahan home just before sunset. I stood in the hallway while he met Rhea alone in the living room. 10 minutes later, he stumbled out, pale, drenched in sweat. She spoke in 3 voices, he whispered. One of them was yours. Back at the motel, I checked my mirror again. Condensation, normal, wiped it clean. Looked again, nothing. I turned off the light and climbed into bed. Then I heard it. From the bathroom, 3 deep knocks, followed by a whisper. Come see your echo. Some cases you close with a file and a signature. Others leave you with the smell of sulfur in your lungs, and the feeling that something is still standing behind you every time you face a mirror. This was the second kind, and it wasn't done yet. A search team located Marcus 3 days after his disappearance. He was discovered deep in the woods north of Columbus, barefoot, eyes open, body half covered in leaves. His mouth was frozen in a silent scream. His fingernails were missing. But there was no blood. Not a drop. The medical examiner called it hypothermia. They always do. What disturbed me most was what they found etched into the bark of the tree above his head. Echo, 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 echo. 4 times. Scratched by human fingernails. I didn't tell Rhea. I didn't have to. Father Gabriel made the call. Rhea was to be relocated to a cloistered monastery in upstate New York, one of the church's last functioning rites sanctuaries. Hidden, guarded, off-grid. Her parents didn't resist. They were barely holding themselves together. Her mother wept through the paperwork. Her father didn't speak. I accompanied Father Gabriel and Rhea on the drive. She sat in the back seat, looking out the window, whispering to herself the whole time. No one understood the language, but it wasn't gibberish. It was structured, ancient, and rhythmic. Sometimes it rhymed, sometimes it mocked. The rite was performed in the monastery's stone chamber beneath the chapel. I was allowed to observe from behind glass, an outside witness, as required for official documentation. Father Gabriel began the prayers, assisted by 2 younger priests. Rhea was strapped to the altar, not out of cruelty but for protection. Her and theirs, everyone's. She didn't scream, she didn't thrash. She just stared at Gabriel with a soft, patient smile. "You're late," she said in my voice. Gabriel faltered but kept going. He sprinkled holy water. Her eyes rolled back. The marks on her arms turned black. Then she began to chant, words no one knew, words that made the walls hum. One of the younger priests started bleeding from the nose and had to be pulled out. Her body lifted 6 inches off the altar. She didn't flail, just hovered. Then came the entity, not visible but felt, a pressure in the room, a low vibration in the bones. The walls seemed to pulse. The flame of the single candle turned black. Then the voice spoke, not Rhea's, not even a mimicry. It was ancient, slow, genderless, cruel. "You opened the veil, you do not get to close it." Father Gabriel shouted the final lines of the rite of expulsion. There was a sound, wet and metal, like a sword being pulled from a throat. Then silence. Rhea dropped flat. She lived. She slept for 2 days straight. When she awoke, she didn't remember the ritual. She didn't remember me. Her eyes were different, though. The spark was back. The edge was gone. They kept her at the monastery for a month, then released her to her parents under church supervision. Joel never woke up. He died 3 weeks later. Official cause, cardiac failure during a seizure, but I saw the body before they buried him. His fingernails were black, and on his chest, scratched faintly into the skin, were the words, "You closed the door." But I learned the lock. I filed my report. I burned the audio recordings. I deleted my mirror photos, but I still wake up at 3:17 a.m. sometimes. And I still check the mirror. And sometimes, when the steam fog's just right, I see them. Not 4 marks, not 6, 7. And I don't know who the 7th is supposed to be, not yet. But I think it's watching me try to figure it out. Thank you for joining us tonight on Late Night Horror Stories and True Crime. If you enjoyed this case from the Vatican Files, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss what the church doesn't want you to hear. Let us know in the comments. What would you do if something followed you home after a séance? Until next time. Sleep with one eye open. Good night.